I'm putting the paint where it ain't. Yo, what's up, everybody? Hey, this is your host, Demetrius with the PPP, Panthers Prime Podcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Hope y'all doing pretty good out there, man. Yes, sir. Hey, man, it's combine time. Yes, it is. And I'm excited about it, man. We got a good show today lined up. We're going to listen to some sound bites, from Dan Morgan, Dave Canales. Get a little bit more understanding of kind of where they want to go at in this draft. Listen to some draft prospect interviews as well. And I'm just excited about it, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm really, really excited about it. So we're going to get into this, man. What up, Daz? What's popping with you, Daz? Good to see you, man. B. Amos, what's up, yo? What's going on with you, man? I'm excited about this. I'm not going to lie to you. I am excited. We're going to get into this, man. And I'll start looking at some of the actual other interviews that came out concerning the Carolina Panthers and things that Dan Morgan and Dave Canales said outside of what we saw yesterday inside of the presser. I'm real excited about what Dan Morgan is doing going into this next season here, man. So we're going to pull this up real quick and get it on the screen. Make sure that y'all like the show, please, for me. I did it inside this format because I wanted y'all to be able to see, the actual interview in a nice format, not the short format. So make sure you do me a favor, just go ahead and like the show. Go ahead and actually knock out some of those goals. We got the goals that are inside of the chat as well. And of course, man, if you're rocking with the channel, rocking with the content, show some love. Donate to the channel. Cash App is up there in the top. It's pinned to the top. It's PanthersPrime1. Help us reach our goal of $100 per live and subscriber donations, okay? And what up, Candy Girl? What up, Jay Balmer? What's up, yo? We're going to get into this interview right here. Radio Row Combine here. All right, Media Row for the Combine with Dan Morgan. Let's get into this.
We're joined by Panthers GM Dan Morgan here at the Combine in Indy. I want to take you back when you were coming out of Miami. What's your memory of being at the Combine?
Yeah, so I didn't work out at the Combine, so I only did interviews. But the one memory, is pretty vivid in my mind is, there used to be the old train station here. So in the train station back then, the scouts would basically grab and try to fight over you. And there was one guy that grabbed me that nobody fought with, and it was Sam Mills.
Wow.
Yeah. So Sam grabbed me and he's like, "Hey, young man," he's like, "I want to talk to you for a second." So he just pulled me to the side and was talking to me. And yeah, that's my biggest memory.
What do you remember from that conversation?
Honestly, I don't remember what the conversation was, but I knew exactly who it was because I've always been a football fan. So I knew who Sam was, but I honestly, I wasn't sure that Carolina even liked me or not because I didn't go in the actual official interview room. So I just talked to Sam, and I think Sam liked me, and I think that carried a lot of weight.
And you ended up a Panther and
Yep.
a fine good one. We get here to Indy, underwear Olympics, right? We can get enamored by how fast a guy is and what you see in certain drills. As a GM and somebody who played the game, how do you balance what you see here versus what the film tells you?
Yeah, I think first of all, being here and getting to talk to the guys, even if it's for 20 minutes, you get to talk to some of these guys and just kind of see them face to face for the first time. So that's actually really cool just to kind of get to know them a little bit. And then, going back to your original question, it's, they're out there, they're moving around, they're running their 40s, that's all good. But you always got to go back to the tape and what you saw on the tape because, this is only going to take you so far. So this is really just kind of the checks and balances. I think if anything looks out of whack, whether it's a 40 time or a 3 cone or a shuttle, yeah, maybe I'll check up on that and maybe we'll watch the tape a little more on that or, ask the analytics guy about it and hey, what do you think of this? Did this show up in the data? So
you're trying to cross-reference the tape, basically.
Yeah,
hey, we
exactly.
see this. He looks fast on film.
Yep.
Let's make sure it checks out.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be the other way too, to where a guy ran really fast, but he didn't play fast. So why didn't he play fast? So, there's all things that you have to figure out. It's like putting a puzzle together.
You put the puzzle together last year during the draft. What was the lesson that you kind of took away from your first draft as a GM a year from now?
I think, we're happy with the guys that we drafted. Getting, a Jatavian Sanders in the 4th round, being able to trade up and get Xavier, who we think has a bright future. He's going to continue to develop. I think is really no lessons learned other than, I just feel like each year, if I'm not getting better at it, then there's a problem. So I'm just going to continue to keep getting better, keep depending on my team because we have a really good team of, scouts, analytics people. We all work together. We all collaborate along with the coaches as well. So it's a process and it's a lot of fun.
It's also, as you know, an inexact science. So are there certain indicators? What are they that say, yeah, this guy can be successful in the NFL?
I really think everything boils down to, does a guy love the game of football? And I think, through the interview process, that's what you try to figure out. And does that match up with the tape? If I see a guy out there and he's kind of dogging it to the ball every other play, that doesn't really show me you love football. So, we look for guys that, are competitors. They want to compete at every turn. They love the game. They love the process. And this is just all part of the evaluation process that we'll continue to, keep chipping away at through the spring.
And as you chip away and as you get to the draft, if you got the 8th pick, not getting into specific prospects, I know it's early for that, but how do you balance need, scheme fit versus he's the best available player and we'll figure it out. Let's just get him in the building.
Yeah, I think like if you're looking at the draft board and, we're at 8 and, there's a really good player that we have, maybe he's not at a position of need. Like, I think you take that player, but if all things are even, you take the position of need. So that's the philosophy that we're going to run by.
I know you're not in the market for a quarterback.
So that's a pretty interesting position there, right there. And I think it's one that kind of goes a little bit over from what I've said, just a little bit beyond. I thought that Dan Morgan was going to kind of be more like we're drafting our but it's clear right now that Dan Morgan is saying that if there's a guy there that kind of tips the needle, either on both sides of the ball, say like a Tyler Warren or Tet or just anybody, Mike Green, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, anybody. It may even be people who we're looking at, quote, maybe not, in the top 10 or whatever, but someone who they feel, is a decent person, that's still available in the first round when we pick at 8. It's clear now that if he tips that needle, he's going to go in that direction and draft that person. I wouldn't say I have a necessarily a problem with, but I think it's going to come down to the acquisitions. Excuse me. I apologize for that. It's going to come down to the acquisitions that we get in. So we're going to have to sit back and, see what they do in the next 2 weeks as far as free agents. And shout out to Jay Bomber, man, for that 4-month membership. He said, just because I want to. I appreciate that 4-month membership, man. And shout out to Daz. Daz says, trade back Dan, please. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's keep going. We got some more tape on this right here. Watching a couple things today, but let's finish up with this video here.
But the market for the quarterback could determine what you do with that pick. What would entice you to potentially move off 8, whether it's up or down?
Yeah, I think, regardless if it was for a quarterback or not, like we're going to leave our options open. So if somebody wants to come up at 8 and they give us the compensation that we're happy with, then feel free to move off that pick if it made sense for us and the organization. So yeah, we're going to be open to all different types of scenarios, and we're going to be ready for all types of different scenarios.
I know you've said, hey, emphasis on the defense this offseason. What position group specifically is the biggest point of emphasis?
I think you go interior D-line, you go outside linebacker, you go safety. And then obviously we need another corner. So there's a lot of holes to fill. It's not going to happen overnight, but, I think as we move through free agency, we move through the draft, I think things will start to kind of come together and the puzzle will start coming together, a little clearer.
So on some of these specific positions, I just want to ask you for traits that you look for besides desire and love for the game when you're watching film.
Yep.
Let's start with interior D-line.
Yeah, interior D-line, obviously you have to have the height, you have to have the length, and then you got to be violent at the point of attack, and you got to have the strength, to stack guys up. We like to call it play gap and a half, even 2 gap. So we want our guys to be strong, physical, and obviously have that prototype measurables, the height and length as well.
Edge,
you got to be explosive. You got to be athletic. You got to be explosive. You got to be able to bend and get off the ball. And, those are the type of athletes that win, and they win consistently in this league. So that's what we'll be focusing on.
Your old position, interior linebacker.
Yeah, I think linebacker, first and foremost, you got to be smart. You got to have instincts at that position, and then you got to be able to run and close, and then you got to be able to hit, and you got to be able to finish tackles. And then on the other side of that is you got to be able to cover. So, and that's where, the value of these linebackers, if you can cover, if you can blitz, and you can make an impact in the pass game, that's where, the value skyrockets for those guys.
You don't have to sub off. You can leave them on.
Yep.
The safety position in the NFL has changed, and you can't do some of the things you used to be able to do. So what do you look for from a safety these days?
Safeties, again, like in our scheme, every scheme's different, but I think in our scheme on the defensive side with the safeties, like you first and foremost, you have to be smart. You have to be a really good communicator. If you're not a good communicator and you're not smart back there, you're not going to last long in our defense. So we really put a premium on those two things.
I know you did a lot to address the offense last year, but if there was a certain spot on offense where you would like to add, where would that be?
Yeah, I think, it's really just adding playmakers, but, we have to add another tight end. We have to add another wide out, another running back. So there is a lot of holes to fill on this roster. And we'll address that, whether free agency or draft, and we're just going to sign and draft the best players.
You have preached patience and discipline. You got more money now with the salary cap increase. Packed the offseason plan.
I don't think it changes that much. Brant does a great job. So like being able to work hand in hand with Brant, we're always communicating. We're always talking. I'm always aware of the cap. He's always aware of, what players that I like from my standpoint. So, I think it really doesn't change that much, for what we'll be able to do. We'll have a plan. We'll have a solid plan in place, for both free agency and the draft, and we'll attack it.
The last thing, Dan, there's an element here where there's a lot of information disseminated, and there's gossip and rumors and misinformation too sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
How much of you and your group and the front office being here is about just gathering intel? What's this team doing? The teams that are picking ahead of us, the teams that are picking behind us. How much of it is just kind of gathering intel so you have an idea of how some of these things could shake out in free agency, in the draft?
Yeah, we always have a saying, gather information, don't give information. So, our guys know, like, hey, let's gather, let's try to like let's try to figure out like who teams are attacking in free agency, where are they attacking in the draft. Like, we're always trying to find information from everybody, whether it's agents, whether it's scouts around the league. We're going to try to dig, and we're going to try to be, aggressive in that sense. So, yeah.
So if I ask you, hey, so what's the pen? You're not even going to go there.
No, definitely.
Yo, I love this. I love this from Dan Morgan. Dan Morgan just said, get information and don't tell anybody anything. I love this position from Dan Morgan. I think that it goes well with what we're trying to build here in Carolina. And he's Bill Belichick 2.0. I mean, he just really is. Get all the information that you can get and don't tell nobody anything. I love that.
Definitely not. Definitely not. We're gonna protect that information.
Dan's gonna protect that information.
Yeah.
We'll have to get the reveal once free agency's over, and then once we get into the draft. Panthers GM Dan Morgan.
All right, awesome. So that's the first video there. I loved everything about it. Kind of gives you a little bit more in-depth, information on where Dan Morgan kind of is at. He did put a little bit more emphasis on two positions here that he's looking to try to, bolster up, which would be the tight end position as well as the wideout position. And he's been kind of hinting at that the past 2 days now. He's been kind of going with this tight end situation. I've been noticing this about Dan. I'm not going to put any names there, but this is something that I have noticed over the past 2 days now. So, I don't know whether it's going to come in the draft or whether it's going to come, in free agency, but he has been talking this tight end and, situation for 2 days now. So, I always say this: the first thing a person says is normally, the thing, especially when we're talking about football. The first thing a person says is normally the angle that they're trying to go at. So we could be looking at probably getting another tight end real soon. Yeah. Shout out to Nervash, man, for that super chat. Didn't our last 2 picks leak way ahead of the time with Leggett? Yep, that was Leggett's fault. That was Leggett's fault. And the Bryce Young situation, I don't think that was a leakage from the actual organization. I think that was more so a how would I say analysts kind of pumping and pushing that narrative of Bryce, even though it was the pick, it really was the pick. I don't think that the organization let that out. I don't think it was let out from the organization. And then with Leggett situation, Leggett said something 2 days prior or 3 days prior to the draft, because I remember Dave Canales had a after we got him into the building. So yeah, nothing was coming off the chest from us. Seems to me info leaks out, they come pretty easily. Yeah, no, I don't think it was from the actual organization. Shout out to Candy Girl again. Nervash say Leggett completely spilled the beans weeks before. Yep, he did. Yep, he did. It wasn't weeks before. It was more like about a couple days before, if I'm not mistaken. It was about a couple days. He just started talking, man. Shout out to Leggett, who did have and we're going to go over that as well in one of these interviews here on Twitter. First and foremost, let's go back here, and we're going to look at some combine behind the scenes sidebar from Quick Blitz, which is Vashti's I guess podcast and Twitter page. Go there and we'll take a listen at their sidebar conversation.
I think that
with them.
What do you guys have to consider before that decision is made in May?
I think more than anything, just from like a money standpoint, do we get something done with him now in terms of a long-term contract? I think that's kind of the thinking right now.
You're going to let a lot of guys test free agency. I know you have guys that you said you wanted to bring back. What does that process look like? Do you have do they come back to you with an offer and you decide whether you're going to match it? I'm just curious.
So we'll stay in constant communication with our agents.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be here at the combine. They'll talk to other teams, kind of get a gauge for what other teams think or what other teams would want to pay. And then they'll circle back to us at the right time, and we'll come to a decision then.
Given the number of guys that you have eligible to test free agency, how do you balance that in terms of perhaps a wave of new guys coming in, or just wanting to balance the competition within the system?
Yeah, I think there's certain guys that are priority to bring back and that we'd like to bring back, but I think we're at the point now too where you'd like to bring some young talent in, some new talent in, and just kind of infuse this team in that sense.
Is some of that just because the turnover with you and Dave last year and kind of getting an idea of when you want that locker room?
Yeah, I think so. I think also, you have to bring some young guys in, and the young guys that do come in, you have to let them develop as well. So, I think bringing these young guys in, like a Trevin and some of our other young rookies, this gives them an opportunity to step up on the leadership side of things.
Dan, when you look at the division as a whole, how close do you think the NFC South is to being better than it's been lately and putting multiple teams in the playoffs, that kind of thing?
I can only speak for us. When I feel like, for us, our goal every year is going to be to win the division, to get a home playoff game, and then to make a run. And that's going to be the goal every year as long as I'm the GM. In terms of the other teams in the
man, I love that statement right there. Every year, that's our goal. Shout out to Dan Morgan, man. That's our goal, y'all. We're going to make the playoffs this year.
Division, I'm not so much concerned about them. I'm concerned about getting our roster right and making ours the most competitive in the NFC South.
Do you ever look at, okay, Atlanta's going with a young quarterback now, that might change strategies for other teams in the division, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it might. I think definitely you have to keep track of what these other teams are doing in the division. You can't be naive to that, but at the same time, you really have to focus on who you are and your philosophy and building the team the way that we want to build it.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
You said the goal is always to win the division and make the playoffs. How close do you feel like this team is to making that goal?
I'm not going to put any timelines on it, but again, that's our goal every year. We're going to have that goal. We're going to work towards that goal, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to work. We have to work hard, and we are working hard. So we're gonna build this thing the right way. Through the draft, we'll supplement in free agency, but we'll also be disciplined in our approach.
Dan, we all know.
On a couple of the other players, I don't know if you answered that. Derek Brown, where he is in his recovery, his rehab.
Yeah, Derek's doing good. Excited about his progression in the rehab process. He looks really good. I see him walking around the building. He looks big. He looks strong. Really excited for him to come back in 25.
We all know that you had a background with Dan Jackson. You guys signed him to a contract. What were the conversations like when you guys were holding yourselves accountable for the season with Dave and Brant and you guys in general when you decided you wanted to make some decisions like Shaq and Dave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to be real with things. Whether Dame was a signing of mine or Shaq was here for a long time. Obviously, we have a lot of respect, but we have to do what's best for the organization in the big picture. So that's really the conversation is this what's best for the organization? And that's why we made those moves.
You mentioned Corbett and Mays up there as guys you'd like to bring both of them back. How much did that group become kind of the personality of what you guys were doing last year?
Yeah, the offensive line, yeah, we got some characters, but they're also some good football players. So, they wouldn't be as funny characters if they weren't good football players. So we're excited about that group, and they're going to continue to get better.
How much have you seen the off-field camaraderie?
Mm-hmm.
A guy like Jalen Walker, he comes here, he's in the linebacker. You view him as an edge? You heard about where most teams see him?
Yeah, I don't know how most teams see him. I know he's a talented player. There's a lot of talented players in this draft. He's just one of many. So excited to just keep digging and getting to know these guys and move forward that way. Say that again?
Where do you view his position?
I'm going to kind of keep that close to the vest right now, but he's a good player.
And kind of on that note, when you're at an event like this, where you've got hundreds of guys coming here every day, how do you find the little nuances to kind of separate who might work for your team and what doesn't?
Yeah, I think, when we bring these guys in the interview setting, it's finding out about their football story and how did they first come to love football. Just kind of hear them talk us through the process of how they fell in love with the game. So I think it's pretty obvious the guys that love it and the guys that are, maybe doing it for the wrong reasons. So we have our different, ways of asking questions and, getting to the answer. But, I think that's the biggest thing is when they're telling their story and how excited they're getting about the game of football. And yeah, that's the biggest way.
You guys made – sorry.
Dan, it's considered a deep draft for the front seven on the defense. What goes into the calculus of saying, okay, we're going to take the pick at 8 versus perhaps trading back? You take it into
yeah, I think with the 8th pick, obviously, we have the choice of either staying there or we have the choice of, trading up, trading back. I think, in the case of maybe trading back, you really got to count your numbers and see how many guys you'd be willing to take, and then you drop back accordingly. So, yeah, that's our thing right there. So, and I think if we do stay, we're obviously going to take, if a guy's even with a need, we're always going to take the need over the one.
Will this week help a lot in that calculus?
Yeah, I think just kind of getting to know these guys, obviously you only get to spend 20 minutes with them. So we have a lot more work to do on these guys. before we make a decision on whether we like a guy or not. So there's still a lot of work to be done. Through the spring process, through pro days, maybe even some private workouts. So we're excited about that.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Dan. Yep.
All right, cool. So that's that interview there. Very informative interview again. We also have one. Let me go back to Carolina Blitz real quick. We're going to go to Dave Canales' interview, okay? We're going to pull up Dave's.
Grant's text thread. Does that have like a funny group name?
No, it very boring. Dan, Brent, and Dave.
How often does that go off?
Oh,
How
man.
many times a day?
Yeah, I don't know, but pretty much all day, and just little things, things from, field setups for off-season and training camp, things from personnel, things from staff, like all those things, just constantly making sure that we're on the same page about stuff.
Dave, last year, you and Bryce could only talk in the theoretical about visions and stuff like this. How has this offseason been different with your relationship now?
Just, kind of leaving the season, talking to Bryce and the excitement that we both felt. I think there was just a mutual respect, about going through something really challenging and coming out on the other end together, and growing something together because, again, like we talked about even a year ago, it's like this offense will look like Bryce Young. Well, however we got to do that, we're going to find what.
Yeah, there, right? Offense will look like B.Y. Reaper. It's going to look like it. That means it's going to be a lot of what you saw in Atlanta, a lot of play action, a lot of Bryce utilizing his legs, in the play. It's going to look like Alabama Bryce. That's why his title here, or subtitle, is Bryce is back. And we're going to get into that interview with. Yes, it's a lot of interviews today. It's a lot. I'm trying to give you guys some content, something that y'all probably haven't seen yet. Okay, so let's keep rolling, man. This is a good interview right here with Dan. I mean, with Dave and Dan. And I think it's very, very informative on where we're going to move at in this next year or this next season.
What that is, and I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at him and see what sticks and see what starts to emerge, and that certainly is not just about Bryce, it's the emergence of Xavier, it's Thielen coming back to us and Bryce finding a way to throw to him. It's Jalen Coker and what he brings to us, JT showing up, Tommy certainly, so it's all those guys, really fleshing it out that we could end the season saying, hey, that Atlanta game was pretty fun, right? That's a pretty good starting point for us in terms of the mix of how we use the core of our system, but then having some thises and that's to try to make first downs, to try to make explosive plays.
Dave, I know the conversation has largely been about mixing things up on defense and having the opportunity to evolve there.
Yeah.
But offensively, you do have some openings at tight end, wide receiver, running back. How much, now knowing what your offense somewhat looks like, being able to kind of address that with maybe prospects and potential for free agency, how different is that?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? Because you want continuity, and so talk about a guy like Tommy Trump, we're going through all of our film and he does such a great job, so now it's all of a sudden it's in all fairness, let's let Tommy see what's out there from a free agency standpoint. But for me, it's okay, we have these guys that we've trained for a year, and you'd love to have them back, some of the free agent wide receivers, speaking offensively, but at the same time, there's an excitement also of let's look at free agency. Let's look at the draft, to see how do these players marry up against our roster so we can start to get a little bit of, kind of pairing them up in terms of where are they at in this room? Is this the top guy in this room? Is this the second or third guy? So that's the exciting part of it, is just trying to find those pieces and fitting it all together.
Along those lines, Dan said that you wanted to bring Austin back, wanted to bring Cade back, and that Taylor was a guy you obviously wanted to keep.
Yeah.
How important is that continuity with that group to continue to build year after year?
That's huge, right? I mean, I think one of the strengths of our team was the offensive line play, and even with that group consistently.
Yes, it was. That was definitely a strength. We spent $153 million on it. It had to be the strength.
Changing, we had some guys that had a lot of versatility that helped us, and so I think it's really important, that we look at those guys first.
Hey, what's up, Ari?
And try to make that a priority.
How you doing, Claire? Good to see you. Good to see you.
For us, so that we can continue to help Rob and Damian do what they do best. Having somebody that can be in there and direct traffic.
When you're evaluating talent here at the Combine, how do you, or maybe it's the same hat, but is there a separate head coach hat versus OC hat? Is it the same hat? How do you balance those two?
Yeah, it definitely, I would say from a head coach standpoint, I have to make sure I switch up who I'm watching in what order, so like I'll make sure I watch like all the corners, and then I can flip over to some receivers and make sure I get back to watching defensive line, and so that my brain doesn't just start going down that rabbit hole of how good can I make my offense. It's like, all right, this is a team we have to build here, and we have to be ready to take the best available player wherever that's at, sitting at number 8 right there. We're going to get a fantastic player, and based on the amount of really good players we see in this class. So it's like, who is that going to be? I have to make sure that I have a vision for how to help our defense, how to help our offense take the next step.
Is that difficult?
Definitely is. And also just like humbly, it's a learning process for me. And it's like popping into Todd Wash's office and go, hey, here's how I saw these two guys. Tell me what I'm missing. Or did I see this right? He's like, oh no, yeah, that fits in with what we're doing there. This guy right here, so he can talk specifically about the traits and the things that he looks for when he's watching film. And that's what's so fun about being the head coach, is I get to learn from these guys and the expertise that they have.
What do you think about? How many players do you have currently on the draft board?
Was that?
How many players are currently on you guys' draft board?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that I can say this. I know there's a significant jump from last year to this year on our draft board, and I think that's a kind of an indication of the strength of this, this 2025 draft class. And I think that probably it's some of the COVID extra year holdouts that kind of broadens each of them. But it also puts the pressure to be able to dive into those groups and start to evaluate the character that separates these guys. Because from a physical standpoint, you see the traits and you see people that you see there's more players that.
God dang. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. With him saying that, I don't know about Mike Green now. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I'm still beat my drum for a possible Mike Green or somebody defensively going at 8. But what he just said about character, of course they're going to have to dive in, and Mike Green did elaborate today in his interview about the misconduct allegations from high school, and also when he was at the college before he went to Marshall. But all that stuff has been passed and behind him. We just got to see. I know that there is a level of concern, with that type of allegation, especially being in 2 different, stems of life for this guy, high school and going into college. But the one thing I will say, man, is the pass is a pass, and everybody has a pass. Whether or not this is too much for the Panthers is yet to be seen. But, I'm still holding on to a possible Mike Green signing by the Panthers. We'll see.
That could potentially be available, but like now we really have to do our homework on the fit.
Dave, you mentioned the tight end position. How do you view that position? What's your philosophy? You hear a lot of coaches talk about that's a good mismatch type position, but what's your general philosophy?
Versatility and toughness, first and foremost. We're going to run the ball, so we certainly can't just take receiving tight ends who give you no value in the run game. At a minimum, this has to be a guy that's a really tough. Doesn't mean that he's got to be the 260-pound bruiser that plays in line. Those guys are cool too. But if he's going to be 235 pounds, he has to play with the level of violence, because we are going to run the ball a lot, So the versatility is really important for me at the tight end position.
And then related, wondered if you've seen film of Tyler Warren and your thoughts on him. Had a pretty interesting year at Penn State.
I think he's an incredible player. I think, speaking of versatility, here's a guy that can play close to the interior and play physical because of his sheer size, but then he does create some mismatches in the pass game. You can hand him the ball, so if you look at, some of the teams that are using tight ends for QB sneak, that would be a weapon for somebody in a short.
All right, let's go back to what Dave just said. Let's back it up here. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The more and the more I listen to Dave Canales, it sounds like they like Tyler Warren. I'm not gonna lie to you. It really does. It really does.
He does create some mismatches in the pass game. You can give him,
Let's back up a little bit more.
You've seen film of Tyler Warren and your thoughts on him. Had a pretty interesting year at Penn State.
I think he's an incredible player. I think, speaking of versatility, here's a guy that can play close to the interior and play physical because of his sheer size, but then he does create some mismatches in the pass game. You can give him, you can hand him the ball, so if you look at, some of the teams that are using tight ends for QB sneak, that would be a weapon for somebody to, in a short yardage situation, to utilize him. So he's a very interesting prospect.
Yeah, I'm not going to, now this could just be Dave. Dave is a very, very optimistic, very, very a bottle is half full of glass, half full type, person, man. So I gosh, man, it sounds like they like Tyler Warren. It sounds like they like him. It sounds like it. It does. I just, hey, I got to flow with however the organization flows. You feel me? And I'm not gonna lie, Tyler Warren is a good player. He is. I just wants to get his defense together, man. But I don't know. Dave Canales has talked highly of Tyler Warren. You have Dan Morgan being asked about what positions on the offense he would like to bolster up. And the first position he brought up was tight end. So I don't know. We'll see. It's all speculation as of right now, but it is some telling signs.
Talk about the tuition push. A lot of people around here chat about should be banned. I just want to see if you had an opinion on that. What do you think should happen with it?
That's the QB sneak.
You for it?
It's QB sneak, yeah.
Dave,
I love that about. Listen, man, I love that about Dan. Guys, there are a lot of there's a couple teams, right, that has been reported that they want to outlaw or ban tush, Philadelphia tush push, and I love y'all. We got a good head coach. He just simply said it's a QB sneak. Just stop it. It's a QB sneak. This has to be the most. That was the most. Look at him. Look at him. Look at Dan's eyes. What? Ban it? What? Dan Morgan Dave Canales like he about to slap somebody, man. Like what you mean ban it? Man, that's a QB sneak, man. Stop playing with me. Let me go over there. That joke was funny,
a weapon
man.
for somebody to, in a short yardage situation, to utilize him. So he's a very interesting prospect.
Coach, there's been talk about the tuition push. A lot of people around here chat about should be banned. I just want to see if you had an opinion on that. What do you think should happen with it?
That's the QB sneak.
You for it?
It's QB sneak, yeah.
Dave, with that said, having a versatile tight end, at wide receiver, I know you don't want to be known as a guy that has like an X, Y, and Z. You want everybody to be versatile and stuff like that. But do you believe like having a high floor for that depth chart might be more impactful than, say, having that number one guy? Like you can have guys who can fit multiple roles.
I do love that. And that goes to special teams as well. I think I'm used to my history in Seattle. Doug Baldwin was one of our starting wide receivers. He was also a gunner. He would be begging us to get on kickoff in different ways. Jermaine Kearse played special teams. Ricardo Lockett was one of the best gunners, in the NFL for a while. So I'm used to guys that bring that special teams value. Like the thing that I had to learn to get used to, which was a cool opportunity, was going to Tampa, where Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, you could do, extra work on the side because they weren't on teams, and then when we got here, we certainly have a couple of guys that we've been able to take advantage of those windows, but I am used to those type of athletes. And typically you're getting a really smart and tough player who can run down make his assignments on special teams, and also be an ass kicker from an offensive standpoint.
You had some recent decisions to keep Andy Dalton, but also let Shaq Thompson test free agency.
Yeah.
What were those decisions like in the conversations you had with those guys?
Yeah, Andy, huge signing for us. Continuity, the value he brings to the quarterback room for me. If you're going to be in that quarterback room, there's got to be high value you bring. His expertise, his experience, he can still play ball. We saw that this year. So if we had to play Andy at any point, if something happened to Bryce, Andy could step in there and give us that continuity. But just what he brings as a person too, I really value that. And his relationship with Bryce, the trust factor that they have together is really special. As far as Shaq goes, as a first-time head coach, I can't say enough about Shaq just championing the cause, leading the charge of the attitude and play style that we were trying to accomplish and look for, and so like for me, it's just nothing but gratitude in terms of Shaq. He and I had a good conversation about that, and just really appreciate the way he had my back, and at this point in his career, giving him the option to test free agency to see if he can find a place to do it. But I just have nothing but gratitude for Shaq.
Two more. You touched on just the way this team finished last year in Atlanta, even the momentum that was building toward the end of the year. Then that this roster will be different between the draft and free agency. How do you build on that? How do you continue where you finished?
Yeah, I think it's the heart of what we were after. It was the way that the guys stayed together and continued to press into the week, the process through our Monday, Tuesday, all the way through game day. I think that was what's critical to me, is that the guys that come back have an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, from a toughness standpoint, from the energy that we have on the practice field, the focus, the accountability, the intentionality, all those things, the play style that we talk about all the time, that's what's most important. Schematically, we have our foundation in place. So that's important for guys to understand, like, this is what we're going to do, but here's how it can look when we add some of the nuanced things that we were able to do later in the season, and build off of that. So I think it's more of a feel than it is specifically the plays.
Last one. We can ask it about players all day, but James Pierce, Charlotte guy, edge rusher, is kind of projected to be in that 8 range. What do you think about him as a prospect?
A dynamic playmaker, great size, balanced athlete, motor. He really, his big plays are special. So something that we have to consider and look at, for him to be, this close to home, and Tennessee not being very far away as well, somebody that we're going to definitely look at closely.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, man. So that's the interview right there with Dan Morgan and Dave Canales. I say Canales. I'm sorry. I'm from Miami, so Canales just rolls off the tongue a lot better. Pause. But I actually enjoyed both of those interviews, man. Puts a lot more perspective on what they're looking at. We do know that the option of trading up is there if there's a team that the Panthers, find willing to do so. If the compensation is right, of course, what Dan Morgan said, but also trading back down. If there's a team that wants to move up, that's, we're going to be open to all options, which is something that I knew Dan was going to be, open and ready for. And he said, well, we will be ready for all those different variables. They did say that they have a whole lot more people on their draft board than previous years or the previous year, which is good. Just shows you just how much talent is inside this draft this year. And listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. There's gonna be some surprises. Some people's gonna drop. I know we're all, we're on mock drafts and we're on PFF stuff or whatever, man. We're looking at simulators, but these simulators, that's just what they are. They're just simulators. They're just a bunch of different outcomes and algorithms and trends and stuff like that that's added into the computer. It's added into the software, and it's updated all the time. So, who might be considered 1 through 10, pick might be in real life 20 to 25, maybe even 30. A 20 to 25 on PFF right now, maybe a 40 to 60. Maybe even a day threer. You know, I mean, it can go like that. So I think it's pretty important to, you know, of course, we'll be covering the draft here live on Panthers Prime Podcast to see what we're going to do with that 8th pick, and you know, to see if they're going to move up, move down, stay there, you know, whatever they're going to do. It's going to be interesting. And this month coming up, March and April, it's going to be very, very busy. We got so much content right now. Shoot, we can run content for the next content for the next I don't know, man, 3 months off of what we got so far. It's so much to pull from. All right, one last thing, and then I'm going to drop the link real quick, man. Make sure that y'all, if you're just coming in, make sure that you like the video, please. Hit the like button, step on the like button, please. Smack the like button, whatever you want to do, just hit it. Also, man, we got goals at the top. You know, grab you a goal, man. Grab you one of those. Light the screen up for me. Also, help us reach our goal of $100 per live and subscriber donations. Straight to the Cash App, Panthers Prime 1, or Venmo, which is Panthers Prime 1 as well. All right, we're going to switch gears over to our last video here before I drop the link. And it's going to be with Dan Morgan. It's a pretty good interview too. Dan Morgan speaking on BY Reaper. Yeah, the Reaper. Very, very good interview that I watched earlier. Let's see here if I can, and maybe it was on YouTube. So let's go back to YouTube real quick. Maybe it was on YouTube. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. We're going to pull it up real quick. Let's go to history. Yeah, I think it was on YouTube. Pete Carroll. Let's see here. Boom, here it is. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I got it. All right, let me share my screen here. And we're going to watch this last video here on YouTube. And then we're going to get rolling with the content like we normally do.
Exclusive event.
Rolling with the content like we normally do. It's going to be a good one today, guys. Long ad here. Here we go. Let's go.
This process. Year 2 of going through this process. How much better do you feel about everything?
A lot better. You know, I think year 2, you're definitely more relaxed. You know what to expect just through the interview process, you know, here as a GM and as a head coach. And then, you know, just kind of going up into the room and running the room and asking these players questions. So, yeah, it's night and day. I'm just ready to attack this offseason, and I can't wait for the draft to get here either.
Okay, well, there's one player that obviously we are most interested in, and that is also a year 2 coming into year 3, Bryce Young.
Yeah.
The growth that we saw out of him this year.
Yeah.
What are you most pleased with?
You know, I'm just the way that he handled the challenges last year. You know, getting benched after the second week, and then returning and playing the way that he did. It just shows how resilient he is. It just shows how much he loves football and how much he loves competing. So to see him come back, I was like a proud dad. I love the kid. I can't wait to see what he does in the future. I think big things are ahead for him.
No, I was on the sideline for that week 3 game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that anyone was more excited about the offense clicking than Bryce was on that sideline.
Yeah.
What do you think he gained in having to watch Andy operate?
Yeah, you know, I think sitting back and watch Andy, you know, Andy's done this for a while now. He's been really successful. So to see him operate the huddle, to run the huddle, to communicate with the coaches, you know, I think Bryce was taking notes, and I also think, you know, it gave Bryce an opportunity to sit back, take a deep breath, and and just kind of like recalibrate. And when he came back, he just took off, and it was fun to watch. He got better every single week. And then the way that he ended the season there the last week in Atlanta was just like, it was a lot of fun to watch. So looking forward to much more of that in the future.
Can you tangibly see a different swagger to him, a different confidence?
Yeah, I actually always say too, you know, he put his visor back on too, which I was kind of excited about. So he wore this visor in college. So he
Right.
put the visor back on, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of like that. So
Because of the message it sends?
I don't know. I don't even know why he did it. I didn't even ask him, but he wore it in college, and he put it back on. I don't even know why he put it back on. I don't want to know, but it was cool to see him just play lights out there towards the end of the season.
Okay, so as general manager now, how do you better support him? What do you need around him?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's my job to surround him with talent. You know, we did the first step in terms of fixing the offensive line. We signed Robert Hunt. We signed Damian Lewis, which were two real big offseason additions for us. And then, you know, Jalen Coker, an undrafted free agent, Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, like he has some weapons around him, along with Jatavian Sanders, the tight end. So we do have some young guys around him that we're excited about, but you know, it's my continued job to keep adding talent, keep adding playmakers around him so he can reach his best.
All right, awesome. Okay, let's have a little fun.
All right.
All right. We often ask players, well, I mean, you were probably asked this a million times as a player, who was your favorite player growing up?
Oh, that's easy. Dan Marino.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though you played defense?
Yep. Dan Marino, my favorite by far. And then cool story is so I grew up in Philadelphia.
Right.
I was 13 years old. We moved down to South Florida. My dad actually wound up becoming his bodyguard. And
Your dad was Dan
Yeah.
Marino's bodyguard?
yeah, he was. Yep. So
How
that's
did that
dope.
happen? Was your dad a cop?
no, well, my dad was a former Marine. He hurt his back. He was a roofer, and that
Okay.
was so. Once he hurt his back, he's like, "Let's get out of the cold. Let's go down into the heat." And he was rehabbing his back down there, and he met another quarterback, NFL quarterback, that was rehabbing at the same time as him, named Don Mikowski.
Okay.
And Don Mikowski heard Dan was looking for somebody to drive him and protect him, and my dad got the
So,
job.
like, no NDA transfers to a child, right? Like, you could surely tell us some stories.
I mean, I really don't have many stories, but I just thought it was the coolest thing that all of a sudden my dad was his bodyguard, and I'm
Do you
a 13-year-old kid.
A favorite story of you yourself with Dan Marino?
Not really. I just thought it was. So I actually have a picture of me with him when we were visiting from Philadelphia. We would vacation every December down in South Florida, and we
Okay.
went to a practice, and I got a picture with Dan Marino, and I was actually wearing a John Elway jersey, and I was like pointing at him. So later on, I showed him the picture, and he signed it for me. So
Oh,
yeah, it's
what
kind
about
of a cool
Elway? Have
story.
you had Elway sign it
No,
too?
I should though. That's
You
a good
really
idea.
should do
Yeah,
that.
it's a good idea.
All right. Well, the question was actually going to be, once you got into scouting, who was your idol as a GM?
I mean, I got to go John Schneider. You know, John helped me get in this business. He's the first one to hire me. So, yeah, I mean, he's my guy.
Okay. If you could acquire any one player in NFL history to start a franchise with, who would that player have been?
I'm going to go Dan Marino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Consistent.
Yeah.
It is often said that a player might be a coach on the field. Which of your players is a general manager on the field?
JJ Jansen. He might be a GM in the future, to be honest with you.
Is he already lobbying for a job?
Yeah, but he's pretty brilliant. So I might not turn him down if he asks.
All right. We won't sleep on it.
All right, cool, man. Good interview, man. And the one thing I want to go back to in this interview is right
A little
around
different
here.
confidence.
Yeah, I actually always say too, you know, he put his visor back on too, which I was kind of excited about.
Bryce Young put his visor back on. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all, we're getting ready to see. Here's where I turn the Krispy Kreme hot light on. Yeah, man, we're getting ready to see a different Bryce Young, man. The Bryce Young that we should have saw, you know, year one and beginning of this season. But I'm really enjoying the fact that Bryce Young's confidence. Yeah, that's right. Blue chip Bryce. Yeah. Thank you. Blue chip Bryce Yeah. I coined that name for him, Blue Chip Bryce. Yeah, as we hit a hour on the live show right now, man. Yeah, Bryce Young is getting ready to really turn up, man. I'm excited about where things are going at with the draft process. Just where we're at as a team, man. I think that, from what I've seen so far, with all the interviews and a couple of the different interviews with the players at the combine, I feel very, very confident, man, that the Panthers are going to really make some noise. Really make some noise and get ready for players that we didn't think we was going to be able to get. Maybe free agency. I think that that's going to be an option. And yeah, just get ready for it. Hey, I was going to go ahead and stick around to like, some bring people up. I'm gonna go ahead and roll. I just want to bring this to you guys. I'll come back a little later on, and we'll break down some more stuff that we see, with this combine stuff. But we out. I'll be good. Peace.